Next up is the Aaron Hernandez documentary, which is currently streaming on Netflix. The exact title is Killer Inside: The Mind of Aaron Hernandez. For those of you that don't know, Aaron Hernandez was an NFL football player, a tight end to be exact, for one of the best football teams in NFL history, a dynasty, if you will, in the New England Patriots, Tom Brady's New England Patriots. Aaron Hernandez was also, for those of you that don't know, tried and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his brother-in-law, his wife's sister's husband or fiance, because I'm not sure if they actually got to get married. For those of you that don't know, Aaron Hernandez was also the recipient of a 5-year deal with the aforementioned NFL Dynasty team for $40 million. But wait, there's more. Aaron Hernandez also was alleged to be, but not convicted for, but I would go out on a limb and say that motherfucker did it, alleged to be the gunman in a double homicide in the middle of an intersection provoked by, allegedly, someone in the club that he had just come out of spilling a drink on him. He was also married, had a baby, had some gay lovers, was molested when he was younger, had an alcoholic, abusive father. Sprinkle all that on top of a guy that hung around the wrong crowd and also seemed to come off as not being the sharpest tool in the shed. And you wind up with a sociopathic ticking time bomb. And that's what this documentary, I thought, lays out for you very well. So Aaron was a very gifted athlete, seemingly all his life. His father was an athlete. I believe his father played high school football. His older brother was an athlete, played high school and college football. His brother was the quarterback for UConn, I want to say, or Connecticut State or UConn. I'm not sure what the difference is, or if there's a difference. And Aaron was a gifted athlete. He played on his high school basketball team, on the football team, played track, or ran track rather. He had a strict father that used to, by the accounts in the documentary, drink a lot and just like fist fight Aaron's mother in front of them, in front of the kids, just like punch her and like take her head and slam it on fucking tables and shit, like super violent and really strict with the kids. He would practice football with them. If Aaron would drop a ball one time, he would make him do like 100 push-ups, which, not for nothing, that's probably why he made some insane catches while he was in the NFL, if you check out his highlight reel. But balance, Dad. Balance. And when Aaron was thought to be going, following in his brother's footsteps, he got like a scholarship to Connecticut when he was like a freshman in high school or in junior high or so, like some crazy shit like that. Like they were like, yo, we'll give you, whenever you finish high school, come here, you have a full scholarship. That's how like talented he was. And his brother was there already, but he wound up going to Florida to play for the Florida Gators in an unexpected twist of events that nobody saw coming. Everybody was surprised by, and he wound up playing with Tim Tebow in college. And supposedly he would get away with murder down there, pun unintended. Being talented himself and chilling with Tebow, who was already getting national attention. Like whenever there was supposedly an issue with Aaron, the team would hush it up and they would keep shit under wraps. Back home, he had his dad, keeping him in line in probably like an OD way, but keeping him in line nonetheless. His father actually wound up dying, if I'm not mistaken, before he went to Florida. So he didn't really have that like strong figure to keep him in check. And like I said before, I don't want to say he was a dumb guy, but just from like they play conversations of his on the phone when he is like talking to his mom or friends from the prison or to his wife, and he didn't come off as like a bright dude. He came off as like the quintessential dumb jock that thought he was gangster, that thought he was hard, he thought he was hood. He wanted to be that dude. Started getting tattoos all over the place, hung around with shady characters. And they say that talent-wise, he should have been a first-round draft pick, but he dropped to the 4th round because of all this negative mystique around him. And the Pats draft him. They're known as a no-nonsense organization. So you'd think that the structure of that team would be good for him. It would fill the void, perhaps, that his father's passing left behind. But that's not the case. He was in New England. He's from Connecticut. So going back home around those shady characters, around his quote unquote friends, was just a hop, skip, and jump away. He would take an hour and a half to 2 hour drive and continue doing all the fuck shit that he was doing on the weekends. And the first incident, which actually in the documentary doesn't come up until after the known incident that he went to jail for, happens supposedly, allegedly, as a result of him being in a club, somebody spilling a drink on him being pissed, the dude he was with, his boy, quote unquote, taking him outside because he's pissed off. And then Aaron winds up seeing the guys later on in a car driving by. So they get in this gray SUV and his boy's driving. Aaron tells him to pull up next to the guys. He pulls out a gun, gets their attention, shoots them and kills them, and leaves them right there at a red light. And from the scene, the case had gone cold because nobody was around, nobody saw, and all they could pick up from cameras is a gray SUV. That gray SUV disappears, nobody sees it again until a little bit later, and I'll get back to it. Then Aaron's hanging out with these two other dudes, shady characters that are low-level criminals. I think they said one of them used to steal bikes. They had minor drug charges, shit like that. They go to pick up Aaron's brother-in-law, and they're in a rental car. And while the brother-in-law is hanging out with them, he's in the car with them, I think him and Aaron had some sort of disagreement or something like that a few days before. I forget exactly what it was, but it seemed like he knew the vibe was off, something was wrong. So he texts his sister and tells her something to the effect of, "You know who I'm with, NFL." I guess that was a code name for Aaron. And he's like, "Just in case, so you know." They take him to a remote location. Aaron shoots him several times, kills him. They drive back to Aaron's house. All this is caught on, different cameras, the surveillance camera at Aaron's house, cameras of them driving on the highway, the text messages on the phone and shit like that. The surveillance after that at Aaron's house, it's tampered with. They try to fuck up the system, surveillance system. I think they erased or deleted everything after that, but it showed everything up until that point. The two dudes he was with return the rental car, and the attendant at the rental car agency finds a gun shell in the car. That's how they tied that car in, and they knew the car to look for and follow, or track rather. Aaron Hernandez's cousin buys a ticket to Canada or some shit like that for one of the guys, and then drives the other guy to Georgia. And then that cousin of Aaron Hernandez's, after they get a warrant for Aaron's arrest and they arrest him and he's on trial and shit, and they check her house, just for, driving these guys and shit and trying to help them get away. She, which is a woman fighting breast cancer, mind you, doing chemo, the whole nine. She has a silver SUV that matches the description of the one from the double homicide in her garage that had not been used in over a year. Coincidentally, right around the same time of that double homicide. And it's in Aaron's name. Sick shit. You can't make this shit up. And because he had a great attorney, because there were no eyewitnesses, they couldn't get a conviction without a reasonable doubt for the double homicide. However, he was convicted to life in prison for his brother-in-law, the guy that, by the way, introduced him to his wife and baby mother, which, by the way, stuck by Aaron in a quintessential loyal to a fault scenario. Her husband just killed her sister's husband or her sister's boyfriend, and she still stuck with the husband. So that broke that family apart, obviously. Then Aaron, after being found not guilty for that double homicide, which he was being tried for, after already being in jail, was the first time that you kind of see, well, definitely the first time you see him cry or anything like that. The first time he was sentenced, he was just stone cold. Looked like he had shark eyes, a fucking sociopath. Like nothing happened. And they actually said something about him that was very telling, in my opinion, which was that he transitioned from his 7,100 square foot mansion to an 8x6 cell seamlessly. And you even hear him on the phone talking to his mom in one conversation, and he's like, "Oh, sometimes I walk over to the door and I look back in my cell and I see how neat it is and how nice it looks." It was just what, dude? What the fuck? He was not right, man. His brother said after the fact that he knew of Aaron getting molested when he was younger. His mom wound up, after his father died, getting with and marrying his cousin's husband. It was just like dysfunction all around. And he like really resented his mom for that. Then there were all these like allegations of him being in the closet and, being a bisexual, and that the, gangster bravado and persona was a way to kind of like shield that or like cover that, like the gangsterness was his beard. And there was this one dude from his high school quarterback that supposedly that they interviewed a lot that seemed, but something was off with him. Like he seemed like very eager to be on camera. You know what I mean? Like he was like enjoying his 15 minutes of fame, like a little too much. So something was off there. And I heard on the podcast that supposedly it was true, like the rumors of Aaron being bisexual. Some guy that he was supposedly really with came out and said that high school quarterback guy was full of shit. Like he was never with Aaron, but who knows? I don't know. But that seemed to definitely be like an element within all this. Maybe he was afraid somebody was going to out him. I remember that being a narrative when the whole thing happened of why he eventually hung himself. Because that's what he did after he was found not guilty. He showed emotion for the first time, looked back at his daughter and his wife, cried. A day or two later, hung himself in his cell. And they were saying that, the reason why he cried and showed that emotion is because he knew he was going to kill himself. Now, the one quote unquote smart thing he did, or calculated thing, maybe would be a better choice of words, is that in the letter, he left letters, like for his daughter, for his wife, his lawyer, I believe. And he tells his wife in the letter that, not to be sad or whatever, and that she's rich. Now, when he went to jail, that $40 million for 5 years, I guess, was forfeited. But he heard from another inmate or looked up that if he died, that his sentence gets commuted or some shit like that, or retracted or something, and that he would be due that money, supposedly, which would obviously go to his wife and kid. The sentence was commuted after he committed suicide, and they really didn't get into in the documentary if the wife wound up getting the money from the Patriots or not. What they said in the documentary is that the Patriots would probably rather spend like double the amount in legal fees to not have to pay that money or some shit like that. But yeah, man, it's a sad story all around. I could imagine that little girl growing up, his daughter coming from that. It's sad. And just the wasted talent on Aaron's side. But yeah, it was definitely a very well put together documentary, and I recommend you guys check it out. It's called Killer Inside: The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, and is streaming on Netflix.